Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
James, I'm the voice of truth. So
whoever reports for San Diego would have to write some detailed quantitative analysis on the realms that would make, I don't know, thermodynamics look like a paper on Hop on Pop.
So I can't let that go without interrupting you. I'll be up to my ears in turnips.
This
Even
is
then,
a record for going off the rails.
We're not off the rails for long. It's championship weekend. Here we go.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, hold on.
32 super fans.
I couldn't understand a word they were saying.
One Pod Vader.
You fired up for that, man? Huh?
Every angle of the NFL covered.
We on go time. We still on go.
This is Next Fan Up.
We're live, bro.
Hello and welcome to the We Wasted the Really Good Stuff Before We Even Started Recording edition of the Next Fan Up podcast, also known as Championship Weekend, everybody. Hello, Pod Vader here. I am joined by the usual cast of Neil, our Washington football team superfan, James, our Eagles superfan, and Doc, the award-winning gridiron chef. We are all here today to bring you a wonderful preview of the AFC and NFC championships. Plus, we'll have some thoughts on the head coaches that were hired, the head coaches that have yet to be hired, and some other off-season stuff. Hello, guys. How is everybody?
I'm just, I'm really lucky. I made it to the show today. I was just finished my interview for the Eagles head coach job, so I just made it in time.
Come on, buddy. You're 4 days out from Robbie Burns Day. What's going on? Are you starting early or what?
It's true.
We actually had till these two clowns jumped on.
We actually had haggis last Saturday. We had haggis stuffed in a chicken. Balmoral chicken is always called, I think.
Nice.
Wouldn't the sheep's stomach be bigger than the chicken? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't the chicken be stuffed into the sheep's stomach?
Doc, you take this one. I can't.
No. It's about. It depends what size of chicken. Can't believe we're talking about this.
Also, yeah. I mean,
roasters or fryers. It's probably about. What do you say, mate? About 3/4. It still fits in the belly there.
Yeah,
but even then, a record for going off the rails.
Even then,
you can, right off the bat, within the first 2 minutes.
I've got to say, they don't come in wrapped up in sheep stomachs anymore. They come like just wrapped up in plastic, and then you just cut it into slices or cut it into chunks and stuff as much as you want into your chicken.
You're gonna have to come up with a Scottish term for turducken. So,
turducken.
It's lovely.
Tersheepen? I don't know. Next fan up at gmail.com if you've got an idea, or at NFU Podcast on Twitter, Facebook.com/NFU Podcast. We got a lot to get to before
the listeners don't need to come with any food ideas. I mean, we've tried chipmunk on a stick, and that doesn't seem to have caught on.
No, it hasn't. Before we jump into the games, news on Super Bowl 55, specifically the officials that will be refereeing the big game. Carl Cheffers has been named the referee for the game. He was the referee for Super Bowl 51 and has officiated 17 playoff games over the course of his career. That's not the big news, though. The big news is that down judge Sarah Thomas will be part of the crew, and she is the first woman to officiate a Super Bowl, quite obviously. That is the real big news there.
You've changed. The big news is you've changed, Jay.
How have I changed?
I remember having a disagreement with you on this very podcast about 4 or 5 years ago, where you wouldn't stop using bloody Roman numerals to talk about the Super Bowl, and now this week it's Super Bowl 55.
That's because I actually know that 50 is L, so it's pretty easy to read the Roman numerals for 55 and 51. Yeah, when it's XXXCVGD52, then it's like, what Super Bowl is that? I don't know.
Well, don't worry, because that Super Bowl is a long way away.
All right, good. That's good to know. By the way, those two will be joined by umpire Fred Bryan, line judge Rusty Baines, field judge James Coleman, side judge Eugene Hall, back judge Dino Paganelli, and replay official Mike Wimmer. Now, is the replay official really an official? Because don't they just send it right to New York?
Yeah, I think so.
No,
Yeah.
well, they have a replay official there in the stadium in the press box booth or next to it. That's where the officials on the field get the buzz from on the little things on their belts to pretty much say this plane is being stopped for further review. That's somebody literally upstairs in the stadium buzzing down to them to review the last play for whatever reason. So yes, the replay official is actually in the stadium.
What was the guy going back to that list, Jay? There's a Rusty. What was Rusty's role in this event?
He's a line judge.
I can tell you, Rusty Baines, wasn't it? That sounds like the sort of guy who's going to be thinking, I'm on national TV across the world. I'm going to chuck a few flags here for no apparent reason.
I was going to say, I thought you were going a different way. I thought you were going to say that was a totally made up name because it certainly sounds like one.
Yeah.
Coleman and Thomas, as we mentioned before, are making their Super Bowl debuts, while the other officials will be working in the game for the second time. So a young, quote unquote, young refereeing crew here.
But the big story was the woman who's going to be as part of the crew, and that's another positive step. Will the referee and officials get a third round pick in the draft for making this choice?
That's a great question. I don't know, but well done there.
Thank you.
All right, I've got some totally useless stats to set up our preview here. By the way, if you've never listened to this show before, my useless stats are not useless. They're just useless in that they're not going to help you win anything or tell you how to bet on a game.
Can we have a vote on that?
To provide context.
Should we have a little vote on that? Or raise your hands if you think Jay's stats are useless. Okay, no hands. If you think they're rubbish, all hands up.
I mean, Jay took a very long roundabout way to contradict himself.
He did.
Each of the remaining teams has won at least 13 regular season and postseason games combined this season, which marks the first time since 2015 that all four teams in the conference championship games each have at least 13 combined regular season and postseason wins. Additionally, each of the four teams in action this weekend averaged at least 29 points per game in the regular season, which marks the first time in the Super Bowl era that all four teams in the conference championship game averaged at least 29 points per game. Green Bay leads with 31.8, Buffalo 31.3, and Tampa Bay 30.8. They are the three highest scoring teams in the league this season. Each of the four starting quarterbacks remaining in the 2020 postseason recorded at least 35 touchdown passes this season. Aaron Rodgers led the league with 48. Tom Brady had 40, Patrick Mahomes had 38, and Josh Allen had 37. This is the first time since 1970 that each of the four starting quarterbacks in the conference championship games recorded at least 35 touchdown passes in the regular season. Each of these contests are a rematch of a 2020 regular season game, and both of those contests took place in Week 6. Tampa Bay defeated Green Bay 38-10 on October 18th at Raymond James Stadium, which, by the way, is the site of the Super Bowl, and Kansas City traveled to Buffalo to earn a 26-17 victory on October 19th. There you go. I have set the stage for you all. We will kick things off Sunday.
But Jay, you forgot one more useless stat.
Oh, what is that?
One of these quarterbacks is not like the other. Three of them has something that the fourth one wants.
Oh, yes. Three of them have Super Bowl rings, and Josh Allen does not.
Yeah.
That's a good one, too, to set the stage. Thank you, James.
I'll load up your stats there.
We got more. All right. I like it.
Since the merger, 1970 conference championships, Steelers 16, Pats 15, Niners 16, Cowboys 14, Tom Brady 14. Tom Brady 14.
All by his lonesome.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. Let's kick things off Sunday, 3:05 p.m. on Fox. And it is the NFC Championship game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers. And I will throw to our Green Bay superfan, Brian, right now.
What up, NFU fans? Green Bay Brian here to break down the Packers-Buccaneers NFC Championship game matchup. Well, based on the last time these two teams played, I think the offensive line is going to play a big factor in the outcome. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line absolutely wrecked us that game. They were throwing up hits and hurries left and right, got Rodgers off of his game. He got in kind of like a bit of a pouty mood. I hate when he does that, but he has a tendency to do that when things are spiraling. We're going to need a much better offensive line game than we saw last time. Now, I will say we lost David Bakhtiari. We lost him in that game also, and we kind of didn't really have a great plan. We played Rick Wagner, who's been playing right tackle for us at left tackle that game, and we hadn't played him there beforehand. We haven't played him there since. It was just a disaster. As a unit, the Green Bay offensive line gave up 13 hits and 20-plus hurries that game. Those are ridiculous numbers compared to what we've seen from other opponents this year against the Packers. I'd be surprised if we gave up 13 quarterback hits in the last 4 or 5 weeks combined. So, yeah, I think if we can cut that number in half, which I think is still, probably more than I would expect, but if we can at least cut it in half, I think we'll be at least competitive. In the rushing attack, I think we're going to need to run the ball pretty well. I shouldn't say that. I think we need to run the ball well enough to at least keep the Buccaneers honest. That's something that did not happen in Week 6. Looking at the box score, Aaron Jones rushed for 15 yards on 10 total carries, so we're going to need better numbers from him. I assume that's in large part also related to that offensive line, or at least, didn't help matters. All that said, I think we shouldn't expect the running game to be too much of a focus this week. I just think that Tampa Bay has got one of the best run defenses in the league this year, and rather than running into a brick wall, we might be better off throwing some quick passes, little flare outs, get the ball out of Rodgers' hands quickly, and use that as an extension of the running game. In the passing game, I'm expecting a little bit more of a wide receiver focused game than maybe the running back or tight end focus that we've seen every now and again. Just given how good the Tampa Bay linebackers are, I think our running backs and tight ends, while they are also good out of the backfield and catching passes, I just think that the linebackers that the Buccaneers have are next level good. If we can instead take advantage on the outside, I think 17, Devontae Adams is still going to get his. Really, the question is who else can step up. Alan Lazard stepped up for us last week, caught the really what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. I don't know, maybe we see MVS get behind the defense once or twice, some big gains. Something to hope for anyway. Flipping the script, kind of looking at how we match up on D against the Tampa Bay offense, specifically against the running game. I think we've been pretty strong lately. We've been playing Darnell Savage, our second-year safety, a little bit closer to the line, which I think has been helpful for him, and seen a few more splash plays out of the defense. And the other player I'd spotlight, not really a household name, is Chris Barnes. He's our rookie inside linebacker. Been doing a great job of shooting gaps and making some of those splash plays that we never really saw out of the Packers middle linebackers for really the last decade. I will say I don't think their offensive line is great in the run blocking game, and I think Green Bay has been playing pretty well there lately. We held Derrick Henry under 100 yards. David Montgomery had a great game against us, and last week Cam Akers had a decent average, but kind of a low yardage total. So I think I'm expecting the Packers run D to play pretty well. In the passing game, I think we're pretty good on the back end, maybe the best that's left. But Tampa Bay just presents a ton of challenges. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, even Scotty Miller, and they've got Cameron Brate and Rob Gronkowski at tight end. That's a lot of really strong players that we need to cover. The Packers have a good trio at corner, but that's just a lot of firepower to contend with. That I think if we're going to match people up man-to-man, I think we'll see more Kevin King on Mike Evans and put Jair on the opposite side of the field on the outside. So whether that's Brown or maybe a little Godwin, whoever's outside. But I just think King and Evans probably match up the best and put Jair on the other player. our two safeties, Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage, have been lights out. I think they're the number one starting duo since the last 4 games of the regular season. Just really making impact plays all over the field. Given all the weapons that the Buccaneers have in their offensive arsenal, I think we're going to need to see a good game out of our pass rush. I do think it's another area that the Packers have a bit of an advantage. Buccaneers passing offensive line numbers are very up and down. So if we can get a down game out of a player or two on that offensive line, it's really going to open up opportunities for Zadarius Smith, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark. All 3 of those guys have just been monsters up front over the last month. I think last game alone, Rashawn Gary put up 7 hurries. So really starting to show out in year 2. Putting a bow on everything, I do think that the Packers will win. I think there'll be more points scored in this game than you might think. Given the fans in the stands finally. We got some cold weather planned for the Buccaneers this weekend. Looking at a high of 24 at kickoff for the Packers-Buccaneers game. Contrast that with the 75-degree weather that they're having in Tampa this week. It's a home field advantage. Might see some snow flurries. And I just think the Packers are playing some of the best football there is right now. So give me the Packers. I'm going to say 33, Buccaneers 26. Go, Pack, go.
So Green Bay Brian trying to steal my thunder by taking the weather reports. However, I will tell you, the high is 29, the low is 20. AM snow showers are predicted for Green Bay, Wisconsin, but they're snow showers. I mean, it's probably going to be like the flurries we saw last weekend. James trying to say it was snowing. It was flurries.
You take what you can get. Just leave the tarp off the field the night before.
As I mentioned before, this game features the quarterback with the most postseason wins in NFL history, Tom Brady with 32, against the franchise with the most world championships. Green Bay has 13. Last week, Rodgers passed for 296 yards with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 108.1 rating, his 8th consecutive postseason game with at least 2 touchdown passes. That is now tied with Joe Flacco for the most consecutive postseason games with at least 2 touchdown passes in NFL history. Not Tom Brady, not Joe Montana, not any of those all-time greats. No, Joe Flacco had the record for the most consecutive postseason games with at least 2 touchdown passes. That's disgusting. Just wanted to get
there are a lot of quarterbacks who haven't done squat in their careers who have records that no one cares about. What else you got?
Tampa Bay is the first NFC wildcard team to reach the championship game since the 49ers in 2013. Let that one sit in. No wildcard team in the NFC has been in the championship game for 8 years now. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're doing a good job of keeping them down.
My guy, Matt Verderame at Fansided, points out that the Buccaneers ranked first during the regular season in yards allowed per carry, 3.6. They should be getting Vita Vea back this week, which will help them in that. Vita Vea, vitamin water. He'll help keep that number low. If Tampa Bay can hold strong against the Green Bay front, it will force Aaron Rodgers to throw in long downs and distances. This means the Bucs defensive coordinator Todd Bowles can blitz. Only the Arizona Cardinals had a bigger blitz percentage this season than Tampa Bay among the NFC teams, which will be good because Tampa finished 29th in air yards allowed this season. That's exactly what the Packers are probably looking to do. Get it deep, get it to Devontae Adams early and often, and try and run up the score as quickly as they possibly can. All of that said, I like the Buccaneers here. Give me the Monty.
Give me a little Adam and Eve on a raft, wreck 'em, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
I'm going to take the Bucs, who are underdogs by 3.5 in this one. Partially because I predicted that they would be in the Super Bowl in the preseason, but also because I think the Bucs have a better defense than the Packers right now. Neil, you're on the opposite side.
Well, I am on the opposite side, but I think this will be a real close one. And I've only went on the side of the Packers because of the home field advantage, really, Jay. What I would say is last week, if you watched the Tampa Bay game, they had a player back who somebody I've watched for a number of years since his early days at LSU, and that's White, the linebacker, Devin White, who was back last week. I think that was his first game back last week after injury, and or maybe his second game, and he was all over the field. He had a tremendous game over the middle, and I think that's where the Buccaneers might be able to win this game, because he was a difference maker last week, and he's a chance to do that again. I think what you see with the Packers is if he can't get it to Adams, then he generally drops it off underneath, either to the running back or to what's the tight end? Is it Robert Tonyan? Is he the tight end for the Packers? Yeah. And he'll try and dump it off there, and that's going to be in the Devin White zone. And he's a guy that can win this game for Tampa Bay for me.
Doc?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, what they did last week versus the same. I mean, the cover 2 shell, they're just part of cover 2, guys. You know, this is knowing what the guy besides you is going to do, and there's this synergy they had. I mean, between him and Levante David, they are the fastest pair in the NFL, sideline to sideline. And if they keep everything underneath, their run defense speaks for itself. But I'm going to tell you, for a bottom third defensive secondary, they played like a top 2 defensive secondary. They played a lot of man underneath, and it's all the yin-yang between that and the pass rush. Not much of a pass rush to worry about. I just think that if they play up to the level they did, that defensive secondary, with enough studs down low and the run defense, enough to win that game. I think you're right, my Scottish friend. It's the linebackers on defense that will win. And
I'd also just throw in there, this is the perfect storm for quarterback assassinations, because you're playing to get into the Super Bowl, and who's playing on that Tampa Bay defensive line and has a history of stomping on people's heads in Green Bay?
Oh my God!
Hasn't done that in a while. Come on.
Yeah,
he's been a Boy Scout for the last several years.
And Ndamukong Suh has been storing that up all these years, and I can see this is Rodgers must be thinking, oh crap. I better be take the snap and roll either left or right just to get away from Sue, because he's going to stomp on me at some point just to get to the Super Bowl. So that's something to look out for.
Well, and they get Kevin Minter back, and that's their trifecta, and they've been good all year when they've been together. So,
by the way, we haven't discussed a lot of this, and James, I'll definitely give you your shot here. But just to add, talking about the linebackers, the Bucs only have one Pro Bowler, and that's Jason Pierre-Paul. That's a little odd to me.
I think the defense has not been as great. I mean, they had the guy that got all the sacks last year. Was that Barrett?
Yes.
And I don't think he's had such a sensational season as he had last year. Otherwise, they have really struggled at times defensively. You know, it's been tough sledding for them at times, especially in secondary. And getting White back and putting him in there with David, that's, like Doc has said, has transformed the defense. But otherwise, I don't know. Devin White missed a lot of games, and I don't know why David didn't get to the Pro Bowl. Who made the Pro Bowl linebacker?
He was complaining about it. Did you hear what Brady said to him? He said something in the locker room. He was during an interview, being snubbed, and Brady said, this is about the big ring, something to that effect.
Team game, yeah.
But,
They are two wonderfully talented linebackers, especially when they're both on the field at the same time. The only issue I have with everyone's analysis as far as how the Bucs will succeed is comparing the quarterback they played last week against the quarterback they're going to play this week. And the quarterback they played last week, sorry, Doc, couldn't get the ball more than 15 yards down the field and, through the air. And
did you rewatch the game? Nobody was open? Carlton Davis, Antoine, they did an unbelievable job covering, man.
The one deep pass they did attempt that they ended up scoring a touchdown on was thrown by Jameis Winston.
Oh, yeah, but that was a sneak play. That doesn't really have novelty.
It still was 40-plus air yards.
And here's another thing. He
didn't even attempt a shot deep.
Who's the fastest guy on the New Orleans Saints? He had the two best plays early in the first quarter on special teams. Deontay, right?
Oh yeah.
He was now scheduled to be 60% target of the game plan. I don't know if you guys follow that up. He was out of the game in the first quarter with a neck injury. He was a big part. He had 7 catches the week before. He's playing. He was now a main part of that thing. And I think that as you see from the injuries,
I get it.
How banged up they were,
I just question, look, and I understand players being missing everything, but still take a shot. And there was no shot taken beyond 15 plus yards downfield. Aaron Rodgers does this routinely. He will take his shots. And like I said, the secondary, they played well last week, but I mean, it's easy to play well when no one's taking deep shots on you, when you don't have to worry about anybody getting behind your safeties. That's not going to be the case this week.
Buddy, you know Sean Payton. I mean, he's never been a long pass guy with the personnel on that field until we got some speed back. But it's just the type of they played well. So.
This week, that receiving core, the tight ends, the receivers, they will stress the secondary. And I think they'll stress these linebackers as well. And Aaron Rodgers, a little bit more, definitely more nimble than Drew Brees is, can definitely make plays with his legs when necessary. I think he's a different style of quarterback they haven't seen in a while. Because I don't think the Buccaneers this year have even seen any quarterback that we would consider a running quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers is about as close.
Well, they've already torched Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, they absolutely slaughtered him.
Slaughtered him.
That was early in the season. This is a different animal now. This is not the same Aaron Rodgers they played in week 6.
You can't make the stats fit your agenda.
I'm not.
No, that's exactly what you can do, and that's what we do on the show.
I'm using the eye test.
Aaron
Rodgers played horrible in week 6, but that was
James.
Week 6.
Sorry, James.
This is the conference championship. That was 3 months ago.
Yeah, but James, I'm the voice of truth, so just
no, you're not.
Well, look at Rodgers last week. I mean, what did he do? Once the play action started working, all he's got to do is get the strong safety and one DB to just stutter step, one step, and who was it? Lazard was by him in 2 seconds. The whole cocktail of things that got to happen to throw long against any cover 2 shell.
I get it. Yeah, and then Lazard did drop a couple of passes. I'm pretty sure he doesn't drop them
James,
this week.
You would have to argue that the Buccaneers are also a much better team.
They are a much better team.
Than they were than when they slaughtered the Packers.
I'm not feeling it for the Buccaneers. I'm just not.
Pod, I got a question for you.
Yes.
You and the love of Tom Brady, obvious, polish your rings while we're talking. Is this not really a legacy game? This is about, does Aaron Rodgers get to another Super Bowl with a chance for another Super Bowl, or falls back into that second, one Super Bowl type of quarterbacks with great talent? They've had 2 quarterbacks over how many decades now? How many Super Bowls? 2.
2 Super Bowl wins, 3 appearances.
And they've been to 3. All right. So not good enough as far as I'm concerned for having two trademark quarterbacks. So I think this is a legacy
game. This will be his first conference title game at home. The other 4 he went to were on the road, and he only won one of those.
James, I just say in the week 6 matchup that the Bucs won 38-10, Aaron Rodgers threw 16 of 35 for 160 yards and 2 picks.
Mm-hmm. And listen, you talk about, this is later in the season, buddy. Mm-hmm. Antoine Winfield Jr. is a budding superstar in this league in the defensive backfield.
Mm-hmm.
A budding superstar.
Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers is one of those players that before November 1st, I really don't care how he's playing. It's the December and the January months where he really turns the league on its head, and you're just jaw dropped by everything he's doing. We're in that time of year right now where he does any and everything that you never even thought was possible.
Yeah. Okay, James, I'd agree with you that, obviously both teams are vastly different from what they were three months ago, 10 weeks ago.
They are. And I'm not taking anything away from the Buccaneers. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm just leaning towards Green Bay.
Sure, and that's fair. But I think you can't totally dismiss the fact that the Buccaneers absolutely slaughtered them in week 6. It does count a little bit. There are matchups in that.
There are matchups a little bit. mate. But
Yeah.
look at the Saints couldn't have decimated Brady twice before any more than they did, and look what happened. It's a different game. I'll agree, but think about this: Aaron Rodgers is going to be the MVP.
But there's two.
MVPs are 1 and 5 in the Super Bowl.
Sorry, Doug. There's 2 points there, though. First of all, it was 38-10. It wasn't like 21-20 or something. It was an absolute beatdown for a start.
Yeah, it was.
I
think the first score was a pick six.
And secondly, there are various matchups in that game. There will be matchups again in this game, which Green Bay clearly won. So there'll have to be some major coaching work done there by the outstanding Packers head coach, of course, to sort that out. Because you can't lose 38-10 and just say, well, it doesn't really mean anything. It does mean a little bit.
Well, the over/under on this is 51, and I definitely am leaning towards the over.
Yeah,
I'm taking the under.
Well, Jay, that depends on the weather.
I gave you the weather.
Take the under.
Were you not paying attention?
No.
Not only did I give you the weather, pulling back the curtains, I gave you the weather twice.
Okay.
He did.
And Paul, one more thing.
What was the over/under for last week's game between Saints and Bucks? Because I heard that one was like 48 or 49. I don't think they came close.
Well, if I can open the kimono for a moment, I would say that while you were doing that, I was Googling the 4 quarterbacks who have played in the AFC and NFC championship games.
Todd, one more question about Brady. Do you think that he's been missing his white type of running back? Do you think, I feel Leonard Fournette is going to be a key factor in this game? He's starting to catch the ball. He's starting to run the ball with even more power than he did before. I think he's becoming Brady's little whoopee.
Yeah. Personally, I think the color of the running back is not important.
Actually disagree. I don't think Leonard Fournette is Brady's whoopee. I think Leonard Fournette is important, but I do think Ronald Jones is actually a better back. Ronald Jones is very underrated for what he does for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's surprisingly good. He's not supposed to be as good as he is. That's a better way to even put it.
Did we not see one of the Tampa Bay running backs drop a couple of balls last week? Like real stone hand kind of looks. Was that Fournette or was that Jones?
I don't know which one it was, but that's why I disagree. I don't think the running backs are Brady's whoopee. I think Brady's whoopee is actually Antonio Brown, whom, if we can get to the injury report, James, I don't think is playing in this game.
Oh, no. He's scheduled to play. As a matter of fact, I'll start with the entire receiving core. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown all show up on the injury report, all show up as questionable. Godwin has hip and quad, Evans with the knee, and Antonio Brown with the knee. Ronald Jones, finger and calf, was a limited participant in practice yesterday. Brown is the only one of the 4 names I just mentioned who didn't practice yesterday. Jordan Whitehead, the safety, and Sean Murphy-Bunting, cornerback. Both of them are listed as questionable. Jason Pierre-Paul is listed as questionable. Kenyon Barner and Vita Vea, who we mentioned earlier, are designated to return this week from injury reserve, but they put Jack Cincy, the linebacker, on injury reserve with an arm injury. And moving over to the Green Bay Packers.
Before you do, just to highlight, just to stick on that Antonio Brown thing, because you said he did not practice. I actually think, from what I'm reading, that Antonio Brown is likely not to play. I'm sure because it is a championship game, he's going to do everything he can to get on the field. But even if he does get on the field, it's not going to be for much. And I think Brady will ultimately control Antonio Brown and be like, listen, Scotty Miller over here, my other whoopee, is fully healthy and is actually going to help me win this game. So, Antonio, you take a seat. I'm going to rely here on little Scotty, and don't worry, you'll get a ring at the end of the day. So, I don't think Antonio Brown's playing, and I think Scotty Miller fills that role. And I do think that is really the strength of the Tampa Bay defense right now, is the depth they have on offense. You have a Ronald Jones and a Leonard Fournette. You have a Mike Evans and a Chris Godwin. You have an Antonio Brown and a Scotty Miller. It's just, you have a Rob Gronkowski and a Cameron Brate. It's like, well, you take one out, you still got another one going.
Yeah, moving to the Packers, Jared Valdir, who they recently just acquired, is out this week. He's been placed on the COVID-19 list.
That was last week. He's not off it yet? Come on.
No. No. He's still
I
on
guess
it.
that means he has it. Oh, well.
Yeah, because it says the designation here is illness. Cornerbacks Perry Nickerson and Kabion Ento, along with linebacker James Burgess, are all slated to return from injured reserve. So they'll be available. Running back Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon show up as questionable, ankle and quad respectively. Wide receivers Alan Lazard and Equinemius St. Brown with wrist and knee respectively. Mercedes Lewis has a knee injury. Mason Crosby has a shoulder injury. That was a very nasty fall he took last week. They're all listed as questionable as well. And rounding out the Packers, Rick Wagner, the tackle, and Zadarius Smith, the linebacker, also show up in the injury report as questionable.
Two things I would say. First of all, I have Googled and found out the four quarterbacks who have played both the AFC and NFC championship games. And they are obviously Joe Montana for Kansas City and for San Francisco. The one and only Jay Schroeder for Washington and the Raiders.
Don't you ever say that adjective with that name again.
Okay. And obviously Tom Brady this week. And the last one of your personal favorites, I'm sure.
The immortal Craig Morton.
Craig Morton for Dallas and Denver.
Oh, my gosh.
How is that for an adjective? The immortal Craig Morton.
The immortal Craig Morton, really.
They're right up there with Joe Flacco. Got to tell you.
Oh, gosh. Buffalo and Kansas City.
Buffalo and Kansas City are kicking off at 6:40 p.m., assuming there are no delays in the first game, on CBS. The Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs superfans, Rob and Nick, have done a very extensive breakdown of this game. And so Neil, Doc, and James, kick back for about a half an hour.
And before we get started with that, let me just say we are still on Mahomes' watch. I don't know.
And it is the AFC Championship game battle between the Kansas City Chiefs superfan, me, Nick, and our Buffalo Bills superfan, Rob. Rob, this, as much as I would like to just, go mean and dramatic with this is really a bit more of a happy hour than a battle because I don't know about you, but I'm at least a couple drinks deep. I know you got something in your hand, and we just enjoy talking football with one another. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing good. It's like you said, pouring a couple cocktails. We're just going to sit here, a couple of old school AFL football teams, going to meet up on Sunday and run the ball a grand total of about 10 times between the two teams and just throw it around.
Yeah, I think that is quite likely. I do hope that things do not, end the way that one of these previous matchups between these two teams, where you guys end up knocking a Hall of Fame Chiefs quarterback out of the game. I mean, it's kind of silly for the Chiefs to claim Joe Montana, but nonetheless, still a Hall of Fame Chiefs quarterback. And on that note, by the way, we're recording this on Tuesday night. So there may be some news that emerges, but all indications are that Patrick Mahomes is going to play this game. I've seen different, theories and diagnoses, but it sounds like basically what he had was not actually a concussion, but some weird reaction to having, being tackled by the neck in that way, whether it was a pinched nerve or being, kind of a little gassed and kind of getting the wind knocked out of him or whatever. That's what had him stumble. And then he passed all of the initial concussion protocol questions, except for one. Like they asked him like the cognitive test questions, and he passed all those. And then they as a part of the test, they asked him like one question about the game, like a fact about the game. And he got that wrong, like probably what score was in the second quarter or something like that. He just, had a brain fart or something, is what it sounds like. But we'll see. I think we're both going on the assumption that Mahomes plays in this game, and we are finally getting the, I don't know, whatever you call it, the arm strength and crazy scrambling and athletic freak Olympics that is going to be Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, this is the AFC championship game I think we all wanted, right? Like you have the Kansas City Chiefs, their offense has been obviously well established the past year or so with Mahomes, just, as someone who's not a Kansas City fan, funnest team to watch, one of the funnest teams to watch in the league. And you've seen kind of Buffalo, their maturation process over the past couple of years. They draft a quarterback a couple of years ago who's, green as grass, and he's kind of evolved and put in the work. And now, you could say that maybe possibly the Bills offense, if not as good as Kansas City, maybe rivals it. Probably the two funnest offenses in the league. All apologies to the Green Bay fans out there. But, this is what everyone wants to see. I mean, it's two big armed hosses throwing it to good receivers all game long, and it's going to be fun as hell.
The craziest thing about Mahomes and Allen isn't that they can throw the ball really far or that they can run around a bunch. It's like how and when they uncork those throws. And for both of them, like I've been surprised at watching Josh Allen this year. I see a lot of like the Mahomes kind of stuff in him where it's just like for 5 straight seconds, this looks like a broken play. And then he throws one of the most amazing throws you've seen as a football fan, like period. Yep. It's just wild.
Yeah, it's when you watch them, not to get too deep dive, but you'll see them a lot more so than a lot of quarterbacks who are kind of out there now, looking one way, kind of using their eyes to really open up receivers. And then even if they're coming in maybe a second late on the throw, both of these guys just have such strong arms. They're able to get it in and make up, the difference in time on that. I know Patrick Mahomes is known for a couple no-look passes that he has had throughout his career for touchdowns. Josh Allen actually has oddly started to incorporate that. A couple weeks ago, he threw one. Actually, I think in the playoff game against Indianapolis, he threw a no-look touchdown pass. So he's kind of incorporated that a little bit into his game as well. I think these are the two funnest quarterbacks to watch in the league. I'm not saying that I think Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I'm not saying that I think Josh Allen is number 2 quite yet, although I think he's really freaking good. But I think these two are objectively the two funnest quarterbacks to watch in the two funnest offenses. And this is the game. This is what we wanted. And it's, let's see what happens.
And so that gets us into kind of the matchups there. And, for me, I mean, it's starting with the Chiefs and Mahomes against the Bills defense. For me, like my opinion, this has been one of the weird years where like my opinion of the Chiefs has not changed the entire year through. Like kind of crazily enough, they're a team that makes like the hard stuff look easy and the easy stuff look hard. And it goes all the way through their offense to the point where even like I heard just this week that so basically like, Butker missed a field goal in this last game. Our kicker, who's generally a very good kicker, he's missed now 9 extra points but only 3 field goals. And he's, and I think he's 100% on everything above 50 yards. So even he can kick 50-yarders with with perfection, but extra points, you never know. And that it's almost like this team in a microcosm, and that like they can pull off the most amazing circus tricks because everything on the offense is used to stretch the defense and to stress them in so many different ways that something's going to break open, and they just have talent that complements each other all over the place. But every now and then when they need to just get 2 yards, they can't do it. Well, first of all, I'm going to be fascinated in just how these two very good coaches game plan for each other, because these two teams did meet in week 6, I believe it was.
Yep.
And it was it was one of the more fascinating games from a game plan standpoint, because the Bills absolutely sold out on taking away the deep shot and just decided we're just going to dare the Chiefs to run on us all game. And sure enough, the Chiefs did. And the Chiefs, it was like the extremely bizarre, rare Andy Reid coached game where the Chiefs ran it more than they passed it. But it worked to a multiple score victory. I don't imagine the Bills are going to take that exact same tack, but at the same time, generally the recipe for beating the Chiefs is find a way to get pressure with 4 and then just throw everybody else back in coverage and hope you can take away the route concepts they like. What do you think the Bills are going to try to do here?
I think the Bills will have, I think they're going to have a somewhat of a similar game plan that they had last time. Bills, this is what they do. Both on offense and on defense, the credo is kind of finding what you're weak against and exploiting it. So take case in point last week. Baltimore, their Bills are not terribly good against the run, but they played Baltimore last week and they stopped the Ravens offense like no team has stopped them because they sold out and basically said Lamar Jackson isn't going to be able to beat us with the pass. And what do you know? They were right. They held them to 3 points. I think you are going to see kind of a similar game plan to what they did last time. I mean, they did sell out. They were playing basically 4 down linemen and then putting the other 7 out back. I think there's some differences, though, this game to last game. First off, Matt Milano is going to be healthy. He did not play the last game. And Edmonds was questionable, but did play in week 6. Right now, he's fully healthy. So I think those are 2 things that matter because that's the core of our linebackers right there. So the Bills had they brought in a lot of different defensive linemen. So they were still, the point in week 6, they were still kind of tinkering with the rotation and didn't really have it down yet. If you look after week 6 this year, they were not that I like the analytical stats all that much, as you know from our Slack channel, but they were the 30th ranked defense after week 6, which was the Kansas City game in DVOA, which is a weighted defensive score. And then you get to right now, they're the 8th ranked defense. So they kind of figured things out and, improved quite a bit. So I do think they're going to do something similar. I just think they're going to possibly have a little bit of better results because the defense is just playing a heck of a lot better than they did in week 6.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you mentioned DVOA. That was one of the things I quick jumped to before we started this conversation. And I was kind of surprised that I generally like Football Outsiders DVOA. I think it's a better measure than a lot of the other ones out there, and it's certainly better than PFF. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see that the Kansas City is notably the lowest team still in the playoffs according to overall DVOA. They are 6th overall, while the other 3 teams remaining are 1 through 3. So, and what's dragging them down there is their own defense. They're ranked 3rd in offensive DVOA and 22nd in defense DVOA still. Now, granted, I think the defense has been very up and down this year, but I think what you saw against like the Browns, for instance, I mean, they still are capable of taking away one thing you like to do. It's kind of similar as what you were saying there. I mean, and they do it just by having like a generally like good front 4 that they can rotate. They have the bodies and the talent in their defensive front to try to shut down the run if they really need to. They also have enough bodies there that are better at pass rushing, and they can kind of do that. And you have smart players like Honey Badger on the back end that you can kind of use for anything. And weirdly, I mean, like they haven't spent any money on that secondary, but it's been performing really well. L'Jarius Sneed, their 4th round pick this year, has turned out to be like a really good corner for them. So I'm fascinated to see what their game plan is against Josh Allen. But I know that Honey Badger is going to be a big part of it. But on paper, that is a big matchup advantage for the Bills. And you sort of mentioned the Ravens game. The Ravens game was an interesting one because I think both. It was a defensive slugfest to start out, so which indicates that the Bills were also struggling for a bit there. What do you think that the Bills are going to be able to do against this Chiefs D that the D might not be able to scheme to stop?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because Josh Allen had one of, when we played in week 6, Josh Allen had one of his worst games of the year. This is also Stephon Diggs. I mean, objectively, probably a 2nd worst game of the regular season. I mean, he scored a touchdown on a beautiful play in that game, but he really didn't do much else. I think Steve Spagnuolo, regardless of the talent on Kansas City, I think he's a good defensive coordinator, and I thought they had a good scheme. Felt like they kind of sold out to the pass, kind of similar to what the Bills did, honestly. It's just the Bills have absolutely no running game, so they could not hold them accountable as well as Kansas City was able to hold the Bills accountable in that game. There was also Josh Allen was kind of dinged up with a shoulder injury that game. I think that matters a little bit. I'm not going to say, he was injured. That's the whole reason why that happened because, I mean, it wasn't. But the offense in general has gotten a little bit more rhythm. The Bills have been a little bit more reliant on running on 4 wide receivers. And, when you have a 4th wide receiver like Gabe Davis, you're talking about Sneed, who's been a 4th round revelation for you guys. Gabe Davis has been a 4th round revelation for us. He's been playing fantastic. I mean, he showed out in the Indianapolis game, had 2 beautiful catches, had 4 catches for 85 yards in that game. has been able to put up good numbers and put up some good plays while John Brown has been injured. John Brown's back, so we're sitting there with our full complement of wide receivers. I think they're going to be able to stress the defense of Kansas City. The offensive line for Buffalo has improved a little bit as the season's gone on. They were kind of jumbling things around. They've kind of stuck with what they have right now for the past probably 6 or 7 weeks, and it's improved. Kansas City does have two guys who can really get after the quarterback, so they're fortunate in that they're able to they could do the 4 defensive linemen, put 7 back, maybe, put a spy on Josh Allen and just make him beat you with his arm in the pocket, which he's shown he's capable of doing that. He has shown he likes to improvise. So I think the place where the Bills could maybe hurt Kansas City the most is going to be on those kind of explosive plays, those 20-plus yard plays. Kansas City is they're really good at stopping those. The runs, they're the second best team as far as stopping explosive plays out of the running game. They're the 24th best team when it comes to stopping explosive plays out of the passing game. And the Bills have, John Brown, who's a quick, speedy receiver who's known for explosive plays. Stephon Diggs is obviously capable of doing that as well. You have Cole Beasley, who has probably been the best slot receiver in the league this year. He is capable of causing mismatches. And you have Gabe Davis, who has, been an end zone threat and can make big plays. And it looks like they're going to call up Kenny Stills this week, who is another guy who can kind of take the top off of a defense. So I think stylistically, what the Bills can do good does match up a little well with what Kansas City does have a little bit of trouble with, and that's the explosive passing plays.
Yeah, and that's why I just think pass rush is going to be so giant in this game on both sides. The same thing I said about going up against the Browns, because the Chiefs' O-line's been banged up, but they actually held up pretty well last week. But for the Bills as well, I mean, I kind of agree with you in that the Chiefs' defensive secondary, like, they've been able to be very effective without a lot of investment there, in part because they rely on their pass rush to keep the plays short. and like, there's not a whole lot of athletic freaks in the secondary for the Chiefs. Like, they have smart guys that can play zone well, and they can, they're big enough that they can man up reasonably well. But none of them are super fast to where, you're dealing with a bunch of fast options that they're going to be able to keep up with all of them. It's kind of the name of the game for the Chiefs is keeping each one of those plays short. And I imagine, it's fairly similar on the Bills side, and it's kind of like these teams are similar to one another in a lot of ways, in that, the scary thing is that these are two quarterbacks that can string out these plays for a long ways, and they can hit any point in the field and, from any platform.
Yep. And you hit the nail on the head, because the Bills also zone defense that has lots of trouble with speed. I was actually pretty surprised when I looked at the numbers and saw that Tyreek Hill actually had what might have been his worst game of the year against the Bills. They obviously made it a point to stop him, but Kelsey is the only game he had multiple touchdowns in was against the Bills. He had a great game, kind of just tore the middle of the field up. But yeah, Bills have trouble with speed. You guys have it in spades. I mean, not just including Hill. I mean, you got Mecole Hardman, who believe played a little bit more of an expanded role against Cleveland, probably with Sammy Watkins out, but it seemed like I saw him all over the place while watching that game. Those are two players who could give the Bills just fits, because they're very technically sound, and they have a good defense, good defense in regard to explosive plays. They are the 7th best at stopping explosive plays from happening. I mean, when you have that type of speed, it's tough. And, it's kind of, both the same. I mean, the Bills and the Chiefs are the two highest teams when you're talking about toxic differential, which is something that I think is important. And that's, big plays compared to what the other team is doing.
Yeah, and I think that leads us right into our X factors. And there's a ton of potential candidates on both sides of the ball, for both of these teams here. But I'm going to go with Sammy Watkins. He hasn't been on the field for a few weeks, but I think that's been in part because they want him. They knew that they could probably get through a couple of games without him, and they want him as fresh as possible for these last 2 games of the postseason. Hopefully, last 2. May just be the last one. But the last couple of years, even though he's disappointed in terms of like aggregate regular season stats, he's been huge in the playoffs. He seems to always have just like one game per playoff game that just is critical to the win. And, and it's because he is basically the third number one option. Effectively, TBvsKC is our number one wide receiver. Tyreek Hill is our real number one wide receiver, but he's also the best deep threat. And so that we use them for all sorts of other stuff, knowing that probably Kelsey's the first read on everything anyway. For defenses, they have to figure out a way to deal with those two guys. And eventually that's going to free up Sammy one-on-one in a favorable matchup. And, and that's when the Chiefs start really killing you. And so I think they've been kind of resting him, and he's going to be fresh and ready to go this week. And I think he's going to have some big plays against the team that drafted him.
Yeah, this is the Sammy Watkins revenge game, I suppose. For the Bills, I think, when you look at X factors, I think it's when you start getting lower and lower on the receivers, they're going to need maybe their third and fourth guys to step up. So, John Brown is going to need to, he had 8 catches against Baltimore. He's going to need to work himself and, get open. Cole Beasley, I think, is an option. He's going to be probably paired up against Snead, who we've talked about a couple times already. Snead is kind of playing that slot, and Snead is really good. Beasley's going to have to win that matchup if the Bills are going to be able to, have a shot to win this game. And I think that's kind of where the X factor could be. I mean, if Beasley is able to go off and have a good game and get open and disrupt that intermediate part of the field, kind of 10 yards in, 6 to 10 yards in, and move the sticks while setting up plays to potentially, get some splash plays throughout the game with the other receivers, I think that's going to really help Buffalo's cause. But if he can't do that, I think that's going to really hurt what they're trying to accomplish. And it would probably honestly mean that the Bills did not win the game.
Which brings us to prediction time. And, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game that for large stretches looks like either the Week 6 game or last week, the Bills and the Ravens, in that they're both just kind of running on each other and punching each other up. And there's not a whole lot of scoring necessarily because of the way that the defenses are giving looks to the offenses. And so they're just taking what's there. But I just think at some point this game breaks open. I think one of these two coaches either gets impatient or one of these two quarterbacks does, and we're going to start throwing some points on the board from one side or the other, and it's going to turn into a shootout for at least a chunk of it. So I think it's still going to end up high scoring. I guess my prediction is Chiefs take this one home 35-31.
Okay. I just realized I gave you the wrong X factor. I just realized it right now. You know what the X factor is? The X factor is the coaches. The Buffalo Bills coach, Sean McDermott, worked under the tree of Andy Reid. He's so much better in game situations. If this is close, it's a big Buffalo Bills advantage. And they use analytics, and they're willing to go for it in spots where most teams wouldn't. They do kind of silly things, but I think if the game
silly as throwing on 4th and inches with Chad Henne on your side of the field with like a minute and a half to go in a game.
I love that. And by the way, can I just say the play before that I loved as much as anything I've ever seen. Chad Henne running it for 14 yards and then just trying to dump truck the linebacker or safety that tried to tackle him. I loved every second of that. That was awesome.
Truly crazy series.
I think that McDermott is an above average game situation coach. I think that Andy Reid, as good as he is in every other position, is below average as a game situation coach. And I think this is going to be a really close game, and I think it matters. The Bills obviously lost in Week 6. Since that point, they are one Hail Murray play away from being undefeated since that game. They are beating their opponents by an average of 13.9 points per game since then. And arguably the hottest team in the league. So I just don't see a way I could pick against them. I know they're going to be on the road. I know they're going to be playing who is a elite, top-notch team. I think the Bills win this game 33-30.
So we both think it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be a great one way or the other. And
a great game.
Forward. And Bills fans are fun. I'm really happy for Bills fans and for the franchise, the success that they've had. and I hope it's going to be a fun rivalry. Actually, it's all setting up to be a great fun rivalry between Mahomes and Allen for years to come. I'm also really looking forward to seeing all those Bills fans donating to either a Mahomes or a Kelsey charity in a few days.
Yeah, after we give Mahomes a concussion again, we will be more than happy to donate to him, because that's what we do. After we concuss your quarterback, we donate to their favorite charity.
The man cannot be concussed. It's medically proven, maybe. Yeah. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. If things don't go our way, good luck in dealing with Rodgers, which is what I think you're going to have to face. And one way or the other, it's always a pleasure, Rob.
Absolutely, my man. Looking forward to the game.
Thanks for listening, guys. I did say I had two things, and I only got through one of them.
That was a half an hour ago, Neil. Where have you been? All right.
I've been simmering over this lack of respect.
What is your second thing on the AFC Championship game? I mean, we're in the middle. We're in the middle of the AFC Championship preview. What are you talking? Why are you going back to the NFC?
Thanks. Well, NFC is obviously the best, but thanks for asking, Jay. I just wanted to be clear for the listeners who's got which team here in the NFC Championship game. I've gone with the Packers. Jay, you've gone with the Bucks.
Yes.
And Doc and James.
Packers.
I'm gonna go with the Bucks. The hot hand. Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jay.
Doc was talking. I thought he was leaning towards the Packers. Look at that.
So did I. Anyway, Jay, move on. Come on.
All right, thanks. Now that we've heard from Nick and Rob and their extensive breakdown, I shall share my extensive breakdown. Josh Allen at 24 and Patrick Mahomes at 25 could become just the second pair of opposing quarterbacks under the age of 26 to start a conference championship game. They will join Vince Ferragamo of the Los Angeles Rams and Doug Williams of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ferragamo was 25. Williams was 24 with the Tampa Bay Bucs in 1979, the NFC title game then. Bills are playing in the AFC Championship for the first time since the 1993 season when they defeated the Chiefs to advance to Super Bowl XXVIII.
Thank you.
There you go, Neil.
That would be 28.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well,
beautiful.
I did that specifically just for Neil.
If you could do it next time in a Roman accent, that'd be great.
Okay, sure. I don't know what a Roman accent sounds like, but I guess that's
You're
Italian,
talking with
right?
one right now.
All right. Going back to my guy, Matt Verderame, who may also be Roman, the Bills aren't fantastic offensively in the red zone. They ranked 13th, 61.8% in the red zone. That is actually, though, one spot better than the Kansas City Chiefs. Steve Spagnuolo's group is dead last, though, and allowing touchdowns on a whopping 76.6% of trips. So the key for the Bills is going to be scoring touchdowns, not field goals. The Bills blitz often, which is something that Patrick Mahomes loves because he'll just torch you when you blitz him. Buffalo ranks 8th in blitz percentage, 35.8%, but only checks in tied for 22nd in pressure rate at 21%. The Bills are also without a single player who has more than 5 sacks. So all of this is not good, but as James said right before we went to Nick and Rob, and as Nick and Rob talked about during their preview, we don't know the status of Patrick Mahomes. My guess is he's going to play, but even if he's playing, he's not 100%, and it has nothing to do with the concussion or the chokeout, whichever one you believe actually happened. It has more to do with his toe that I'm more concerned about with Patrick Mahomes.
No more sprint right option. No more sprint right option. I'm Andy Reid now.
Doc, that was the 4th and 1 from Chad Henne to Tyreek Hill. That got them the first down to seal the game. That sprint right option.
Yeah.
It works.
Well, I'll just say that no more putting him in harm's way. No more of these cheerleader plays. Just put your talent up against talent and use it. Right? Don't you think so? This is just like Lamar, out with concussion. I don't know what the heck concussed Patrick Mahomes. I have no idea unless it's a chokeout thing. I got punched in the neck in a sporting event and I had a concussion. I don't know how that all connects, but the fact is they got to keep him healthy so you can take 20% of the effective Chief offensive plays out of the playbook now. So he's going to play. He's already 3 out of 5 checks now as far as concussion protocol. He's got to go through more than just non-contact, and that's when we're going to see for sure. But can you imagine if he can't play? Can you imagine the hysteria?
Well, at least it'll be an Arrowhead, so they'll have a crowd behind them. Yeah, there's no way Patrick Mahomes is not playing in this game.
Yeah.
So we can just take that out of the thing. Over under on this game, by the way, is only, and I say only, at 54. I think this one's a shootout too. And
under
Kansas City's favored by 2.5. I'm going to take. Now, in the preseason, I took the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl and win it. Mm-hmm. But with Mahomes a little banged up in a shootout, I am going to do it again. Give me Monty for a second time.
Give me a little Adam and Eve on a raft, wreck 'em, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
I'm taking the Buffalo Bills to head back to the Super Bowl.
Nice. Nobody surrounds the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Listen, Coach Sean has won many ways this year, and I think that's the most endearing thing about the Buffalo Bills and how they've matured. I think they're going to, again, it's how he wants to play the Chiefs. And with that toe and that head, he's going to give them the runs. No, yeah. He's gonna let them run the ball, and even though they had 240 yards, and they'll hand it off to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Go ahead, because every time he's got the ball, it's not the chaos of Kelsey and Hill running all over the place, causing havoc in the secondary on both levels. I say he lets them run the ball as much as he wants. They have consistently given up the run all year. They've consistently thrown the ball 90% of the time on offense. They're going to stick with what got them there. But they've got to perform like they did towards the end of the year in that defensive secondary. They shut down a lot of what Pittsburgh wanted to do with the mid and long game. I think the Bills right now have got the goods. They really do. I think it's time for a changing of the guard.
Well, even a changing of the guard, I don't know about that. I'm more along lines of what Nick and Rob said, that this is going to be a long-standing rivalry between these two teams for the next few years, at the very least. And you mentioned running the ball with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Even if Clyde plays, which I would guess he's going to, how effective is he really going to be, James?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday with that ankle and hip injury. Also on the report, Sammy Watkins' calf injury was limited in practice. Rashad Felton, Willie Gay, and Brashard Breeland also show up as questionable as well. Breeland was officially ruled out. I'm still trying to figure out what his injury is. It's not saying here, but he's questionable for this week. Never mind. Forget what I said. Yeah, those are all the entries for Kansas City. By the way, I'm picking the Chiefs. I have nothing to add other than the passing game can outstress any defense you put out there for the Chiefs. Plus, Sean McDermott served on Andy Reid's coaching staff, so I'm pretty sure there's very little he can come up with that's going to stifle Andy Reid.
Sammy Watkins, as you mentioned, could be the X factor, which is who Nick picked as his X factor. I said Neil because Neil, you're next. You're up. You get to close it out.
Cheers. First of all, I just want to go back to the concussion thing. I think there's been a slight difference, I think, in the public perception of this particular high-profile concussion, in the sense that I think if we had this conversation 10, 15 years ago, we'd be saying, don't be ridiculous, rub some dirt on it and get back out there. Whereas I think now there's been genuine questions and a general sort of acceptance that this concussion injury is a serious injury that needs be cared for, and I think that's a really positive step, and just in terms of the health of the players, which of course is paramount for these young men. So that, I think that's been a really positive step for the NFL and for the NFL fan base and the NFL community, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully that's how these things will be taken going forward. I would say for me that these guys have probably said this already in the recap, Jay, or in the preview, sorry, that it's all about Tre'Davious White and Tyreek Hill, who wins that battle. It's about Matt Milano and Jason Kelsey, who wins that battle. And I think that could be what makes puts one of the teams into the Super Bowl and one goes home. I just wanted to pick up on that. I don't buy it that the Chiefs and the Bills are going to be the new sort of long term, or even for the next few years, the rivalry in the AFC. Don't buy that. I don't see that with either of these two teams. They're just not. There's just not enough strength and depth on both of them. I think it's hard to do that. I think if we consider that the Patriots are a sort of goal for every franchise to live up to try and become, that's going to be a total failure for most teams, because that's just not going to happen again. That was the perfect storm of all-time great quarterback, all-time great coach, and no doubt lots of great ownership and all the rest of it. It was all just the perfect storm to last for so long time. So I don't see that with either of these two teams. If that's going to happen anywhere, it's going to be with somebody like Pittsburgh, I would think, in the AFC. And otherwise, Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think they're the organisation that you could suggest would be a team that could have long-term success because of the way they're built, because of their trust in their coaches, all that. The success on the field, a lot of it comes from success as the way you run an organisation.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Anyway, that's a different question for another day, perhaps, Jay. Just overall in this game, I said last week, I think the Bills are destined to be in the Super Bowl, and hopefully for the fifth time in the Super Bowl, and the fifth time will be a win for them, because I lived through those years where Buffalo were so close and when they lost the 4, and I was just a young man then, James. But it was it was hard sledding for the Bills fans, and so then and of course that's probably what makes the Bills fans so vociferous these days, having experienced 4 crushing losses. So yeah. I just have the Bills going there this year.
Is it 4 straight or 3 straight? I forget.
4 straight.
They lost 4.
4.
Giants, Washington, Dallas twice.
Yeah.
Season ticket holder for 15 years, boys. I went through that heartbreak. It's why they're an ex-wife. So,
by the way,
rounding out the Bills injury report here, just briefly before you finish, Jay. Only 4 names listed. Vernon Butler, who's questionable. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Wide receivers Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs, ankle and oblique. Davis was a non-participant. Diggs was limited. And Quentin Jefferson, the other defensive tackle, also listed as questionable.
The weather, 42 degrees is the high, 34 degrees the low. AM showers, so I don't expect weather here to be affected.
I'll tell you, if you guys look at Pod, if you take a look at the IntelliCast, I'll plug there with that Wonder Maps radar, there are 3 systems circling the middle of the United States, and they're going to supposedly converge. So this could go 7 ways to Sunday. You got a low hitting with a high. As a matter of fact, if you look at the wind at the beginning of that game versus what it's going to be like at the end of the game, I think from the north, it's going to be chaotic. I got a lot of TBD between now and Sunday of what the precipitation and wind's going to look like. But take a look at the radar and the satellite, and it's forthcoming. There's a map there that looks like the Syrian war. It's that crazy. So
I think there's a lot of wishing there, because the current wind prediction is for a light breeze, maybe 13 miles per hour at the max. Because not even Monday is predicted as windy.
But Jay, I'm not even sure Doc was speaking about the weather. That sounded like a scene from Independence Day.
The aliens are coming. Or maybe the government can just hit their secret button on the secret weather machine. There is a new administration and all. Anyway, let's jump to non-playoff news. We will start
Eagles time.
No,
No,
God.
no,
not yet.
no.
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 We're going to start with the retirement of one Phillip Rivers. No more
Oh,
shot putting.
Okay, next.
James, take it away. James, take it away.
Next. What's the next story? There's nothing to say here. He retired.
Wow.
Next.
Dadgummit. Come on, man.
James, how dare you? What
Okay,
if,
let's see. He congratulations for having a very long career, making lots of money, and compiling stats that are not good enough to get you to the Hall of Fame, as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
Now, did you vote in my poll?
Oh, I did. I said no. He's not a Hall of Famer. Dadgummit.
Thank you.
I
he's
agree.
not.
What are the results of that poll, Neil?
Rather disappointingly, my polling figures will look even worse than Donald Trump's. So, if you could find me 11,671 votes somewhere, that would be great.
That's pretty good.
I would say, so I had three options in the poll, Jay. One was yes, but not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Second option was yes, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And the third option was no, dadgummit, he's not a Hall of Famer.
The third option is C. James.
Yeah, so we've got 7 votes for no, 2 votes for yes, he's first ballot, and 1 vote for yes, but not a first ballot.
All right, let's call out the people that put him first ballot.
First ballot obviously was superfan Ken, Chargers superfan Ken, and
All right, that makes sense.
and also Greg, our superfan.
What?
Yeah,
Steeler superfan Greg is fired. Phillip Rivers is not. Well, he's already been fired, or he's retired, kind of half. In any case, Phillip Rivers is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Can I see an argument being made to get him into the Hall of Fame? Yes. Which kind of brings me to a story that came out this week. We don't normally get to hear these arguments that are made for the Hall of Fame finalists, although I guess because they're being held on Zoom, there's the potential for stuff to leak out. And one argument actually did leak out. The NFL Network played it on their air, and it was for Peyton Manning. And I don't know who the Indianapolis writer was who was presenting Peyton Manning to the voters, but he basically got on and said, Peyton Manning, I don't have a microphone, and if I drop my computer, it's going to break, but Peyton Manning, mic drop, done. That was it. That was the entire presentation for Peyton Manning. So I don't think the same can be said for Phillip Rivers.
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. No.
So,
hey, consistently,
Phillip Rivers
guys.
to get in, whoever reports for San Diego would have to write some detailed quantitative analysis on the realms that would make, I don't know, thermodynamics look like a paper on Hop on Pop.
Wow.
I think there's a let's be fair here. I think there's
being fair.
There's definitely a case for him being a Hall of Fame player. I think there's no case at all for him, as far as I'm concerned, of being a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I do believe that down the line he's going to get in. One of his problems also might be that you're going to have a number of quarterbacks retiring now. I mean, we expect Drew Brees to retire this year, so he'd be eligible in the same year. You're going to have Brady's going to retire at some point, and
maybe
Roethlisberger as well, Matt Ryan. I mean, these guys are all of us. You know, they're all in that similar sort of group. You know, you can put them who's ahead and who's behind, but they're all in that similar sort of group. So that'll be more difficult as well because, I mean, whether you like it or not. And I know you guys are not big into quarterback wins, but some of these guys have rings. And, you know, Roethlisberger and Eli Manning, they're going to get more consideration because they have rings.
Yeah, that is true. And that is my whole argument against both Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning, because honestly, I don't think their stats, in certain categories,
Eli has
stats
2
warrant
rings.
the conversation.
Your argument is different for the two. Rivers has the stats and no rings. Eli has no stats and 2 rings.
And rings should not be the end all be all. They shouldn't be the tipping point, because we've said on this podcast many times before, if Eli didn't have those 2 rings, there's no way he'd be considered. Maybe he'd be like a legacy candidate, one of those guys who gets to the 25-year mark and it's like, all right, it's been long enough, we should probably put him in.
But James,
2 rings kind of boost that up a little bit.
I mean, there's lots. If I was a Hall of Fame voter, I'd be looking to write myself down a list of criteria that I think would be something you could score in terms of whether a candidate is valid to be in the Hall of Fame. And rings is certainly is one of the criteria, but there's lots of criteria. And I think you've got to make sure that you have enough of those criteria, those boxes ticked to get a player in. So I think.
But Neil, is one of those criteria was he the best at his position at any given point during his career? And
absolutely.
For Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, I can't say yes definitively for any specific year that they played that they were without a doubt the best at their position for a particular season.
Yeah. But can I also say, James, that I agree with you. That'd be one of the criteria for sure. But that's a very difficult criteria to meet because there's not many players who are.
What about consistency and over above average numbers?
Oh, thank you, Doc. Consistency. That's
longevity.
What Phillip Rivers isn't. He's not consistent.
So, but let's go back to that. Let's go back to that. There are very few players that are the best in any given year. I would say, well, yeah, let's keep it just the very best. Let's make it the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but then Tom Brady,
very good.
But then Tom Brady was unlikely to make the Hall of Fame based on that alone because he's only been the first time team All-Pro 3 times in his career.
Yeah, I know you were going to drop that, but that's
but at least Tom Brady
bias.
can say that for at least 3 seasons minimum, he was the best at his position.
No, he won't. Well, yeah, exactly. That's true. And and other criteria, he would score really highly because obviously he's got the rings, he's got the playoff appearances, and all the rest of it. But which is where I think there are definitely positives for Rivers in the fact that he has been in the upper echelons of quarterback play for 15 years. He's done very well.
17.
And he has, you guys have talked about stats. He's got some decent stats there, and. I think also any guy that can knock out 9 kids is in my Hall of Fame.
Neil, I'll say this on Phillip Rivers, and I'll just stop talking about it altogether. Quarterbacks like
you should consider that more often. Just let me say.
I know, but I'll just end it here with this. Quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers, who have compiled stats and haven't gone to the Super Bowl. And I hate doing this, but it's pretty much the only benchmark I have really, justifiably, is the Dan Marino comparison. And not so much like comparing the two eras. But Dan Marino, yes, he compiled stats, but his teams also won. They constantly went to the playoffs more times than not, and they had winning records. Not to mention they won and lost because of him solely. Like, he could put the game on his back and carry that team. And granted, he only had 1 Super Bowl appearance and he didn't win. And then for the rest of his career, he basically set the league on fire. I can't say the same thing about Phillip Rivers.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who was a fully grown man when Marino was playing, James, I would say that, my God, I've never known a more overrated quarterback than Dan Marino.
Well, guys, listen, Fouts, Moon, Kelly, Tarkenton. Yeah, there's a reason, it's a team thing. It's the ultimate team game to get to the Super Bowl.
It is, but those guys all won.
Marino didn't win.
No, they're without a Super Bowl ring. 28% have never won a Lombardi that are in the Hall.
I'm talking about they won games. They won crucial games. They won pivotal games that actually put them in the playoffs and got victories.
Recency bias aside, Phillip Rivers has won games on his own.
Absolutely, yeah.
On his, he put the Chargers on his back at least a few times.
And how many times did he get
He's had a long career. I mean, it's easy to forget how. I mean, let's put it this way: he may not have been the best at his position, but he was definitely in the top 5 of his position at one point.
Antonio Gates, 14-2, and he loses. How many times did he get screwed out of Super Bowls because of a kicker?
Or because
it's a team game. He's the Hall of Very Good, maybe second or third or legacy ballot, but he's still.
And we're not going to mention the 2 times he choked away division titles because his team, he himself tanked the season by going on 4 and 6 game losing streaks.
The team game,
because he's done that at least twice.
By the way, 4 guys here who have absolutely no connection to Phillip Rivers, and it got it was such a heated conversation. I love it.
All right, but hold on. I mean, let's just say. So, does he get into the Hall of Fame or
Phillip
not?
Rivers, really?
Yeah, I'd like to
50-50.
I'd like to hear from you three guys. Yes or no? He gets into the Hall.
50-50.
He doesn't deserve it, but he will go eventually. He's definitely not first ballot.
So that's a yes from James. Right, Doc? Yes or no?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes, eventually.
Yeah,
Not
okay,
first
there we
ballot,
go.
but yes,
Yeah.
he's
There we
going to be in the Hall of Fame.
We've answered our question. There we go.
All right, let's get to some of the new hirings in the NFL. How about that? As we've mentioned and played on the Tuesday podcast, the Jacksonville Jaguars hired Urban Meyer. Can't wait for him to make people earn that emblem for their helmet. It'll be great. The New York Jets hired Robert Saleh. I still haven't seen that press conference. Has that happened yet?
Well, it's Robert Saleh, isn't it?
Whatever. Salah.
Hey, Soderbergh.
It's all the same. It's all the same. Same letters. Just pronounced differently.
Okay.
Put the emphasis on the right syllable. Yeah. All right.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, you've turned into Sodi J-Berg.
Oh, my gosh. I can't stand this.
The Los Angeles. Actually, I'm going to go to the Atlanta Falcons first. The Atlanta Falcons hired Arthur Smith, and MJ wrote up a lovely reaction to this, to which Neil even responded on Slack. But MJ here, the search for a new head coach is over, and that role is in the hands of Arthur Smith. Personally, I think Eric Bieniemy of the Chiefs would have been a better choice, but I'm not the one running the organization, and I really do hope that Smith is the change that the Dirty Birds need. Smith most recently served as the offensive coordinator for the Titans, but also held many other roles with the team. He also served as a defensive quality control coach, so he has an eye for defense, but his role as offensive coordinator is what got him the job. What does it mean for the Dirty Birds to hire a former OC as their new head coach? Personally, I think this is the end of the Matt Ryan era. Ryan has done a great job as quarterback, but it's time to move on to a new quarterback. While Ryan still has a lot left in the tank, he does not have enough left to warrant the kind of money I think he would want. Rumor has it that the Dirty Birds are preparing to hire Terry Fontenot as the new GM. Actually, they made that official. So Terry Fontenot is, in fact, the new general manager for the Atlanta Falcons, formerly the assistant general manager for the New Orleans Saints. Bringing in a new head coach and new GM at the same time, clear indication of change for our franchise, a change that I think starts with the quarterback, works its way down. There are a number of good quarterbacks that will be in this year's draft, and some mocks have the Falcons taking Justin Fields out of Ohio or Zach Wilson out of BYU. I will stop there. Neil. Justin Fields, I mean, depending on who you read, might go 2, might fall, might go wherever. I'm not a big believer in Justin Fields myself personally. What about Zach Wilson out of BYU?
Yeah, Wilson's had a fine season this past year, but I mean, if you had a choice between Fields and Wilson, I'm not sure I'd want either of them. I'd rather fear Wilson maybe a little bit undersized and undergunned for the NFL. Well, I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully it'll work out fine for him. But Jay, that's really high in the draft. What would you say? This is pick number 7. Is that what you said?
They're pick number 4.
Number 4. I mean, that's a hard. I mean, why not? I mean, why not roll with Ryan next year, and try and fortify that defense through the draft? Because the defense
that has always been my question. If you're going to get rid of a top-notch, perhaps Hall of Famer, certainly all-pro quarterback, what are you going to do in replace of him?
Exactly, yeah. And I'm not sure about Matt Ryan's contract, but I understand the contract's still quite high to shift it this year.
Well, where did he make he made his money in Tennessee? What did he make the QB into?
Made Ryan
he can roll out. You've got to have a certain amount of running skill. You got to be able to move outside the pocket. Matt Ryan's slower than the second coming of you-know-who. Come on. It's just they need something more mobile at the quarterback and to fit that system. It's where he made his money in Tennessee. He can't be a stationary quarterback, and that's what Matt Ryan is.
MJ is leaning towards Justin Fields.
Have at it. Anybody who wants an Ohio State quarterback can have it. My God,
good luck.
Jesus Murphy, people. Like, when is these pundits at every bloody draft network gonna look at the history of Ohio State quarterbacks? Stop it! Drop the frickin' mic.
He's the Arthur Smith is a FedEx guy, isn't he? His father was a FedEx.
Was he? I don't know.
Arthur Smith's father, I'm sure, started FedEx. I think it was FedEx. So wherever he's going with Atlanta, he'll be there in 24 hours.
MJ's also ready to move on from Julio Jones, mentioning that the Falcons were fortunate enough to draft Calvin Ridley a few seasons ago. So we have a very good number 2 receiver to step into that number 1 spot. I don't think Julio is gone just yet, but I don't know if he will get a new deal. Both Jones and Ryans have contracts that end in 2023, which is time for a new quarterback to get some reps in and advice from a potential Hall of Famer. Ridley is already getting some good advice and training from Jones, so he'll be good. Speculation that Bears passing game coordinator is joining the Falcons, and that is what really makes me think that a change in quarterback is happening. Ryan is solid in his mechanics, so there's no real need to get him to make changes at this stage in his career, but a new quarterback that has not taken a single snap in the NFL is going to need good coaching. Defensive side of the ball is where I think we need the most help. You don't say. Although, if you're getting rid of your number 1 receiver and your number 1 quarterback, you're going to need a lot of attention on the offensive side of the ball.
You've got to ask yourself, Jay, you've got to ask yourself, why are they going for the Chicago Bears passing coordinator? I mean, how is that guy getting a promotion?
Listen, Trubisky has been inconsistent, but when he's been good, he's been really good.
Last 4 games, he played well. Quite, dare I say, phenomenal.
Yeah, they need a whole remake. They need a whole remake. They're full of failing number 1 draft choices. They have no big uglies.
MJ finishes that the defense just really needs to learn how to play for 4 quarters. Which is what we learned from Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher always knew that.
I thought we were going to stop using fantasy on the show. Yeah. MJ's write-ups have been great all year, so well done, MJ. But I would say the sad thing about reading the MJ's latest one, James, if you take the time to read it, is it's utterly dripping in hope, and that, of course, is going to be terrible news for MJ down the line, isn't it?
Well, again, hope in like getting rid of your best players too. It's not like
look at their cap.
Your best players in place, but hope with let's just get rid of our best players and then we'll improve from there. That's not the way this works. What team has ever jettisoned their best player and done great the next year? I happen to live in a team that I'm a fan of that did really well the year after they jettisoned their best player.
No, look at the amount of time Julio Jones is on the field compared to the money. Same Matt Ryan, they are way over the cap, right? Mm-hmm. Could be up to $40 million. They've got to make changes, and they've got so many areas beyond quarterback that they got to fix. So, I think they'll just take some time, a couple years, to move towards his style of offense. They've got enough blue chip talent on the offensive side. They need a running game, but to get a running game, they need big uglies. They've got so much to work on to fit Arthur's style.
Do you know what
I think there'll be a mass change.
And you know what? And I would pose this question to MJ, and I'll ask him this. There was a couple of years ago, they actually spent capital on offensive line, but they didn't finish rounding it out the next year.
That's right.
What was it, 18 or 17? They spent like 2 or 3 draft picks on offensive linemen who are still starting right now. Yep. The problem is that they when they do get these first round talented offensive linemen, they let their rookie contracts run out and then they let them walk to other teams. They don't retain them.
They have that problem, James, that you see so often with teams that are struggling and have this big change in coaching and all the rest of it. And that is that they're a team without an identity. And if you don't have an identity in this league, then it's really hard. And that's one of the teams that strike you as being, you think, well, who are the Falcons? What are they about? And it's very difficult to identify that currently.
You're right. Next.
Well, we did have 11 interviews for the Philadelphia Eagles, but we've been on this show now and they're already up to 14.
No comment.
Who do you want? Come on. Who do you want, James?
Who do I want?
Of all these coaching guys, who's going to be who do you want as a head coach? Who is it?
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it. In the discussion, Eric Bieniemy. That's what I want.
You think he'd want them?
And that's the question. Because again, and we said it before we even came on air, the biggest question mark with the new coach coming in is Carson Wentz. One, how do you plan to fix him so we don't have a repeat of last season? Two, does your plan going forward include Carson Wentz being the starter? Like those two things are very important to management, because if they weren't, they wouldn't have fired Doug Peterson.
But you see, James, I'm wondering, is that even a question, or is it like a statement? When's their quarterback? Work from there.
It's up to Jeffrey Lurie, and that'll be all made up in the interview process, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
And to some extent, it has been said, like, every candidate coming in knowing Wentz is the quarterback. Like, there's no debate on this. Wentz is the quarterback. Exactly. But that doesn't change the fact that you get coach. I mean, that's been said about quarterbacks before in the past, where you come in and management says, this is our quarterback. And then the new coach comes in and he does Neil, you've gone through this. Snyder, when he brought in Jay Gruden after firing Shanahan, told Gruden, RG3 is the quarterback. And Gruden proceeded to undermine everything to develop RG3. Now, it wasn't all Gruden. RG3 played a hand in his, erratic play. But ultimately, he was benched for someone else because Jay Gruden came in agreeing to what was in place, but not really being completely sold on it, and did what he felt he had to do to get to another quarterback.
Yeah, but to be fair, Gruden was boinking somebody in HR.
Let's not get into your team's nefarious activities.
But so if it's not Bieniemy, and if Bieniemy turns him down, any of these other guys, any of the other 10 who have been interviewed, kind of remotely in your hopes for the team? I mean, some weird ones. Kellen Moore, was it? And Josh McDaniels. I mean,
I like Todd Bowles.
Yeah. But but it seemed to be.
Here's my order. Top three choices in this order: Eric Bieniemy, Todd Bowles, Joe Brady. That's my 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you don't want Bowles. I'll tell you that right now.
Here's why I would want Bowles. I would get better personnel on the defense outside of defensive line, because management can't seem to find linebackers or secondary players.
We had this conversation last week, didn't we? We had the conversation.
Yeah, well, let's just quickly visit this Todd Bowles thing. So you think Todd Bowles will come in and improve your defense because he'll have some say over the personnel? That doesn't seem to me like what's in Philadelphia right now.
Say over it, input, yes.
But Jay, we had this conversation last week about sometimes the coordinator is just a great coordinator and shouldn't be a head coach, and that's no knock on them. And I have a feeling Todd Bowles might be, because he's a fabulous defensive coordinator. I mean, absolutely up there with anybody. But I'm just not sure he's a head coach.
I think he's one of those guys that deserves a second shot.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
James, you and I were finishing up the podcast by talking some WWE, but we had breaking news occur. Well, that happened, fortunately enough for us.
Oh my gosh. And I hope Schefter's wrong, but Neil just retweeted Adam Schefter's tweet that sources are telling ESPN that the Eagles are hiring Colts offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni as their new head coach. Sirianni spent 3 seasons as a Chiefs assistant coach, 5 seasons with the Chargers, and the past 3 with the Colts as the OC. 39 years old, and he looks to be the next head coach in Philadelphia. So, initial reaction, shaking my head. 6 of 7 positions filled and only 1 minority hire.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. I think in this particular instance, it's a good thing it's not Eric Bieniemy, because this particular person is going to be a puppet of whatever the Eagles front office wants, right? They're going to be Howie Roseman's puppet. This is not an actual position of power other than you are the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. But you're reporting up. you're not being reported to. So Eric Bieniemy still has an opportunity with the Houston Texans, which is where a lot of people had him slated at the beginning of all of this anyway. I don't know, though. I still don't know if that's Eric Bieniemy's best move.
It may not be his best move, but it's probably the only move that's going to keep Deshaun Watson happy.
Well, that will be for Nick Caserio to figure out in Houston. In the meantime, it's up to Bieniemy to decide, is it better for him to remain the offensive coordinator in Kansas City and continue to rack up a nice resume for a job next season, or do you settle in quotes for the Houston Texans job?
Yeah.
Where the culture right now is in total disarray. It may not be a job that Eric Bieniemy wants at this point.
No. Who knows? But I guess the final bow I can put on this for the Eagles is that, like you said, it's a puppet for Roseman to control. It's a hire from former offensive coordinator Frank Wright's staff. So you bring at least someone who learned under your former OC, who helped produce the best season Wentz had, because that was the year they went to the Super Bowl, and then he left to coach the Colts. So you pull someone from his staff to come back, be the new head coach, try to fix Carson Wentz, if you will, for lack of a better term here. And it'll be interesting to see how the rest of this coaching staff is shaped out as far as, does he keep anybody on the offensive staff? Remember, I mentioned before when Doug Peterson was fired, Deuce Staley has lasted under the last 3 head coaches. So does Deuce Staley stick around to continue to coach the running backs? Or does he bring in new people? Who does he bring in to coach the offensive line and try to keep them healthy, because that was a shambles this year? More importantly, who does he bring in as a defensive coordinator? That would be something to see if he can get more out of the second and third levels. So the hiring of the staff is probably more what I'm interested in now that this looks to be a done deal.
So Sirianni spent 3 seasons as a Chiefs assistant coach, 5 seasons with the Chargers, and the past 3 with the Colts. So he does have a little bit of a resume. He's 39 years old. Good luck. By the way, this story trending with President Biden removing the red button on the Resolute desk that Trump used to summon a White House butler with a Diet Coke. Why would you get rid of that? I'd like a Diet Coke delivered to me upon the press of a button. That'd be great.
You're also not a 70-plus-year-old man who probably doesn't need to be drinking Diet Coke.
Well, Joe Biden could use a Diet Coke, I'm sure. All right, this is off the rails again. Back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
They're over the cap.
Yeah,
with the
I
new
know.
projected cap. I mean, I don't know how you can fix everything.
But hasn't the dream scenario just appeared, Doc? Hasn't it just appeared on the horizon with the great Hall of Fame bound Philip Rivers retiring?
It's not happening.
Because Wentz to Indy with Frank Reich, that just seems like too good to be true. Great moment.
James, let me ask you straight up. Do you think that, again, it's the overall body of evidence, is Carson Wentz fixable, yes or no? His elixir is the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Without him,
no.
Can he be fixed?
Yes. And I say that, hear me out. Up until this year, he's been playing very good, if not great, for one season. Okay? The Super Bowl run, he was playing otherworldly phenomenal. The other 3 years, he was playing his rookie season was his rookie season. It was a learning experience. He knew what to do, what not to do. The step from rookie to second year was so high, I don't think it's repeatable. But the next 2 years when they went 9-7, I think that's the norm for him. And that's what I want him to get back to. This 5th year was just a dud in every sense of the word.
But is that an anomaly? Is it an anomaly that it just was lack of offensive talent, maybe the
no
different coaching?
And that's where I got to stop you. I gotta. So I can't remember if it was Neil or Nick who posted an article that I was reading about how one player anonymously was saying that Wentz was killing plays at the line of scrimmage because he just to spite Doug Peterson. And there I have a problem. Your disdain or dislike for what's being called should not affect the team. So the talent, look, we understand the offensive line pretty much had 17 combinations through 16 weeks or whatever like that, and Jason Kelce was the only one starting. Yes, the receiving core is nothing to write home about, but my thing is Jalen Hurts played with the same banged-up offensive line and the same receiving core and was actually able to get a touchdown better per game over Carson Wentz. So, and then coupled with that article that I read that Carson Wentz was killing plays at the line of scrimmage to spite Doug Peterson, leads me to believe that, yes, one, Wentz is fixable, and two, if there's any ounce of truth to that, Wentz is a bigger problem than the Eagles bargained for, and going forward, he's going to be a problem for the next head coach, no matter who it is.
So the Los Angeles Chargers hired Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator from the Rams.
Great hire.
No, doesn't have far to go, right? Just changes the offices on other side of the stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be curious to see who he brings in as an offensive coordinator for that team. Detroit Lions, this one, James, you have a rant about a head coach that gets hired out of nowhere every year. This is the one. Detroit Lions hired Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. First, where the hell did Dan Campbell come from?
No idea.
Besides being the Saints assistant head coach, tight ends coach. And two, they gave him a 6-year deal specifically because because the Lions have fired so many coaches over the course of the last few seasons in 3 or less years. That's not an what? Dan Campbell, one, doesn't deserve a 6-year deal, and two, didn't deserve to be a head coach.
I'm going to say I cannot disagree with you guys more. Can I just read you something from his press conference?
Which we'll hear on the Tuesday podcast this week, if it's true.
Okay. All right. So after he sort of says he doesn't want to do coach speak, he says, here's what I do know. It's is that this team is going to take on the identity of this city. This city's been down, and it found a way to get up. It's found a way to overcome adversity. So this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth. And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap. And when we're going to get up, and it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing. All right? That's going to be this mentality.
This sounds eerily familiar.
We've had enough
Mike
of this.
Singletary, anyone? We're going to punch. This is the credo of the show. We're going to punch people in the mouth.
No, we're going to bite your kneecaps off.
This is the 2020 version of we're going to punch people in the mouth.
Now, I can imagine James is the sort of guy who's bitten somebody's kneecap before. Is it easy, James?
No, I'm sorry. I'm 5'11". I'm not that short.
I'm from Detroit, boys, and I will tell you this. This speaks and tastes all about, this is a Chris Spielman hire. A real football guy. Hiring a real football guy. A tough guy. It's his underbelly. It's his assistant coaches that are going to be the crucial factors of the future of this team. Will they take on the personality of their head coach? Maybe. It's never got him anywhere before.
Do you want to be sitting in a locker room, Doc? Yeah, having had a shower, getting changed, and you can see your coach looking at you and you're thinking, he's staring at my kneecaps.
Well, I heard a story. I don't know if it's true or not. I was listening to a Patriots podcast talking about Dan Campbell, and I have breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. My son has just
the Xbox.
Oh, there you go. My son just got an Xbox. There you
Sunday, go. January 31st.
Okay, get out. I'm in the middle of a podcast. I can't believe I thought you came in with like important football news.
Yes.
Got an Xbox.
Congratulations.
All right, back to the story. Dan Campbell apparently at one point cut himself open on the arm and started sucking his own blood to try and fire up his team. I don't. Again,
listen, somebody else's blood.
Can I ask this question here? Wasn't Dan Campbell also a former tight end in the NFL?
Yeah,
he was. Yeah, son of Glenn Campbell.
He was also an interim coach for the Miami Dolphins. I believe when Gase got
Feldman.
The paraphrasing that Neil gave leads me to one of two things. One, he really wanted to coach high school ball, because that's what that speech sounds like. Or two, he wants to replace James Conn as the coach of the university and the program too.
What it tells me, James, is that you're looking at any older guys in that locker room are going to be out of the building, because that's the sort of talk you want for young guys coming out of college, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine some of the veteran players sitting listening to that thinking, "Jeez, what clown?"
Yeah.
Look, the only other thing I have to say about this is giving him a 6-year deal when, let's see, Jim Caldwell, who was actually getting this team trending upward and winning.
Yeah.
Because it was the last time they had back-to-back winning seasons. So I think they were 9-7 in his last 2 years each.
Right. Yeah.
On the verge of turning that corner and actually taking games from the Packers and actually making a mark on this NFC North division. You fired him for no reason whatsoever, as far as I'm concerned, because you can't say we have to go in a new direction. Well, the only way you can justify that with Matt Patricia is if that new direction was purposefully to go down. And you didn't even give Matt Patricia the full 3 years to even flesh anything out. And granted, we all talk about Patricia and his coaching of the Lions and what an abysmal job it was. But I can't, Jay, to piggyback on what you said earlier, I don't understand how you justify a 6-year contract when you didn't give the last 2 coaches more than 3.
Boys, don't you think, though, that this is just like the last decade of the Cleveland Browns until now? This is them talking themselves into no more. We're going to get consistent. We're going to have coaches for 6 and 10-year runs. We're going to be the Steelers. They endeavored to be that way. And this 6-year contract, which is complete stupidity, because you'll go back on your original principles.
Well,
as soon as he craps a bed, he'll be gone in 2 years. But this is a deterrent to doing that. It's a self-deterrent.
It's not really a deterrent, though. Let's face it, Dan Campbell's not going to see all 6 years.
Yeah,
in
2
Detroit.
years. 2 years.
They too have personnel concerns as well, because what do you do with Matthew Stafford if Campbell's the new head coach? Again, offensive minded. What does his offense look like in Detroit? What does his personnel look like outside of that receiving core? And granted, they have a wonderful receiving core, but is Matthew Stafford his answer at quarterback?
Well, he's
number one. You can't stay on the field. They don't have all they have is a running back. They have nothing else. Nobody can stay on the field. And a wonderful
running back group if they keep Peterson and Swift.
Swift is the future. Stafford is not. They got to move on.
They pick at number 7. I mean, but they're not in a. Let's say Atlanta takes
Fields.
Sure, we'll give him Fields. Is Zach Wilson at 7, or is that still too early for you, Neil?
It's too early. It's too early for me, but it's quarterbacks always go earlier than they're probably, most of them go earlier than they should go. So he could do. I think you're right. I think they will trade Stafford. I think
Indianapolis.
No, that's Wentz country.
Yeah, true that. Yeah, but the salary doesn't work. Neil, who's your love affair in the NCAA at the quarterback position?
Trey Lance is the guy I like. Trey Lance and Jamie Newman. They're the 2 guys I like. But,
second or third round.
Just remember, Neil is the one that loves Sam Darnold and hated the kid in L.A.
Justin Herbert. Oh, yeah, I didn't like him in college. That's right. Nobody did, though.
I did.
I thought Herbert was fine. I didn't get the negativity on Herbert.
Had a good Senior Bowl, too. Senior Bowl. Yeah.
You too, honestly.
The only other coaching opening besides we talked about Philadelphia is Houston. The only guy that's still coaching right now that has been interviewed by both teams or wants to be interviewed by both teams is Eric Bieniemy. So I guess we wait and see. I mean, if they're both holding out for Eric Bieniemy, only one of them is going to come away with Eric Bieniemy. The other team's going to be out of luck.
He is a phenomenon.
The general manager hires, we've mentioned Nick Caserio is in Houston, George Patton in Denver. We've mentioned Brad Holmes.
Wait, whoa. Hold on. Yes, Jack. I can smell some anti-patriot stuff here. What about Josh McDaniels and what's this whole thing about Watson doesn't want a New England philosophy running through the entire team?
What are you talking about? Where are you talking about McDaniels? McDaniels has only been interviewed by Philadelphia. And apparently it was a 12-hour interview.
And he's rumored to be on the short list for Houston, though, isn't he?
Well,
and Watson doesn't want this New England thing running through the club. Easter Bunny and Caserio and McDaniels. He doesn't want that.
It's up to Nick Caserio to make Deshaun Watson feel as comfortable as possible, because it will be the biggest mistake of his career to trade away Deshaun Watson and not have
Watson also has no trade clause
in return.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Watson's not going anywhere.
Just because he has a no trade clause doesn't mean he's not going anywhere. It just means he has more control over where he goes.
Yeah,
Miami makes sense.
Again, we talked a lot about Houston last week, and the fact that Deshaun Watson is trying to bring an NBA player philosophy into the NFL that's going to last, not very long. That's what the NFL stands for if he continues on that path.
Look, it's a trend that the NFL players are slowly coming around to, and they're trying to make it happen. I say it happens in the next 5 to 10 years, where the players in the NFL have a semblance, very small semblance of control in the league that the NBA players have. They won't be running it like the NBA players do, but they will have enough control to where they can dictate certain moves, like coaches.
Only way that happens is if the XFL becomes a real option for them, because there's no way the NFL owners will allow any sort of control like that.
There's a certain irony about it that he's doing it at the team who are famous for the inmates running the asylum comment.
Right.
So which is quite funny, to be honest.
This seems like a good time for some food. Are we ready?
No, well, I was just going to finish up these hirings, and then
okay,
for sure. But the Detroit Lions hired Brad Holmes as their general manager. The Carolina Panthers. Stop interrupting!
Well, hold on.
He's almost done.
But it could be a good moment for
getting there. And your team's on the list, Neil.
It could be a good moment for Doc to insert his pressure cooker kneecap special.
Oh gosh,
that was a long way to go for a terrible joke. Carolina Panthers, who I didn't even know were looking for a general manager, hired Scott Fitterer from the Seahawks, where he was the vice president of football operations. Scott Fitterer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Jacksonville Jaguars hired Trent Baalke to be Urban Meyer's general manager.
Yeah.
And the Washington football team hired Marty Herney to become the next general manager, which I think is interesting. I didn't even know that they were looking for a general manager. Is he going to report to Ron Rivera or vice versa?
They're buddies.
They're buddies. I'm a bit disappointed in that. I was kind of hoping we'd get somebody from the Rams. I really want somebody who's been rubbed by Sean McVay's magnificence into our team. And then secondly, you've got to also add we've also brought in Martin Mayhew, who for fans who are as old as I am, Jay, will remember Martin Mayhew as the cornerback opposite Darryl Green in a particularly impressive Super Bowl victory back in the 90s. Now he's been around the league, hasn't he? He was part of the whole Detroit 0-16 campaign, I think, but he's been kicking around the league as an executive, and now he's come in to join Herney and Rivera in the new sort of front office in Washington. So interesting. Great to have an old player back.
Neil,
James.
Don't tease me with you all going 0-16, okay? It's a dream I've long awaited, and don't tease me with that possibly happening, okay? I don't need that. It's too early. It's too early.
We're the sort of team that would go 0-16 and still would end up without the first pick in the draft.
There have been numerous coordinator interviews, including Mike Singletary was interviewed for a particular job here. I don't remember which one, but only one new hire since our last podcast, official new hire, and that's the Detroit Lions, who hired Saints secondary coach Aaron Glenn as their defensive coordinator. So he's going to be teaching people how to bite kneecaps, Neil.
You mentioned Trent Baalke before. Am I right in thinking what was he in the 49ers? He was a GM or some sort of personnel guy, but wasn't he at the 49ers?
President?
I believe so.
Young guy, isn't he? He's quite a young guy still.
Let's look up Trent Baalke. Well, he's also a football player. Well, what do you know? He was
director player personnel. He was director player personnel for the Jags, and he was GM in San Fran.
Yeah, he started his career with the Jets as a scout. He actually was with the Washington football team as a national scout and college scouting coordinator, and then the 49ers.
Yep.
And then he was replaced by Lynch, wasn't he, in the 49ers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There you go. All right, that does it for all the hirings and interviews. Unless you guys have more that you just want to interrupt me with, go right ahead.
Nope.
All right, good. Doc, what do you got for food for this weekend?
So I can't let that go without interrupting you.
Of course.
I would say there's been I can't remember the guy's names, but there's been another couple of moves, haven't there, in terms of the Saints or so who have let guys go and they get the compensatory draft choices. Another couple of guys doing that this year. It's been it's terrific. It's good to see.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think there's also an unwritten rule in the NFL that if you interview 14 or more candidates for your head coaching job, you get a 5th round pick, James.
Pokey.
I don't think that's true. All right, what do we have for food this
Well,
weekend?
ironically, let's celebrate our Scottish brother here.
Yay.
Are you listening, son?
Oh, I'm listening. All ears.
Because you, I'm going to quote my favorite all-time band, which is a progressive Scottish rock band named Marillion. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah. That's Fish.
Fish, my bud. Because you are in your own way an obscure Scottish poet, we're going to celebrate Robbie Burns Day.
There we go.
All right. With a beautiful, just published, sticky whiskey brioche pudding. It's a nice dessert.
Oh, nice.
With cream and sugar and double cream and whiskey with a Y, not an EY. Mm-hmm. Look it up. And it's delicious. And I'll get it to you. I know I've been
lovely
lax in sending up, but we'll do it in honor of the forthcoming Robbie Burns Day, and we'll do it in your honor because you yourself are an obscure Scottish poet.
Right.
So.
It's amazing. I'm a poet and I don't know it. But I would say that that sounds like a perfect compliment to my haggis, neeps, and tatties that I'll be having on Monday night.
That's standard, right?
Mm. Oh, delightful, yeah.
Nips and tatties.
Yeah. Dipped in the blood of an English person.
By the way, boys,
now we've come full circle to the beginning of the podcast.
By the way, Pod, I might as well tell you guys that starting next week, I've aligned an award-winning man cave designer from Denver who has built some of the most beautiful man caves in America with top CEOs from Starbucks and Versace. And she is our decorative person to teach people on how to decorate from curb to couch, on everything you need decor for a great Super Bowl party. And built an array of wonderful celebrity chefs from Amazon Prime and YouTube. And we're publishing Super Bowl recipes and how to run a perfect Super Bowl event at home, of course, socially distanced. So there will be, starting next week, an array of recipes, marinations, how to host, funky stats, pizza stats, chicken wing stats, prop bets out the wazoo, everything Super Bowl. And we'll get everybody geared up here on the next Fan Up podcast on how to run a more than boring Super Bowl party. If that's palatable to you.
Marinations is a beautiful word, isn't it?
Yeah.
We will also, as I mentioned on the Tuesday podcast, we'll be back again this coming Tuesday with the final sound off edition of the podcast, as we'll finish up post game sound from the championship game and some of these coaching hires. I will dig up that Dan Campbell, we're going to bite kneecaps off, because that's a soundbite we have to have.
Tasty.
By the way, teaser, we do have a new open that you may or may not have heard on this particular episode with new sound bites at the beginning. Just saying. I hope you were paying attention and caught that. If you didn't, well, I don't know what you've been listening to over the last 6 years, but it wasn't this podcast. We will have another podcast next Thursday where we'll bring up some of those things that Doc has mentioned. We'll have the super fans do their power rankings for the NFL Hall of Fame. It's not the NFL Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame finalists, where we will pick the guys that should go into the Hall of Fame. But as we'll find out, all of our guys will not make it into the Hall of Fame.
We'll get it right.
And let's see here. Then we will have our prop bet episode. I'm probably going to get my guy, Matt Verderame, to talk about his stats for the upcoming Super Bowl. We will preview the Super Bowl in 2 weeks' time, and we'll recap the Super Bowl. We'll take a week off, and we'll be right back at it with the off season. So we're not going anywhere, and we won't be gone for long, even when we are gone. But we'll still be around. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you hear your podcasts, wherever you listen to them. Subscribe or follow so you don't miss an episode. You never know when I'll throw a surprise episode in there, because I've done an extra interview that will make a show too long. So be sure you are subscribed so you get that, or follow us on the social medias, because you'll see us posting about it there at NFU Podcast on Twitter. Facebook.com/NFU Podcast is another great way to get in touch with us. And nextfanup@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have more voices involved in the show. So send those emails, nextfanup@gmail.com. I think that's all I got. Unless you guys have something more you want to interrupt me with before I end the show, this 2-hour show that's too long. By the way, since we're at the end of the podcast and you all love listening to long podcasts, let me just say, Doc has really, I think, encapsulated what this show is all about. It's football therapy. If you don't have 2 hours for this show, and I don't expect a lot of you do, you don't have to listen to all 2 hours. But if you do, it's football therapy. It makes your soul feel much better.
I feel better already. Absolutely.
Well, because you were on it.
I mean, you impressed me with such a long word like encapsulated.
All right. On that note, here is Kofi Annan. There you are.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.